This week on Lemon's Car Spotting.
Hey everybody, it's Eric and Nick. It's Lemon's Car Spotting. Let's talk about some crappy cars on the street.
Yep. Oh yeah. We're in the street, we're in the snow, and then we're in maximum luxury. Well, maybe not maximum luxury. This is of course, a Cadillac Limo. This is one of the much less impressive front-wheel drive, compact-ish Caddy limos, whatever you would have called that. You know, it might have been an Eldorado, I guess, with a transverse HT 4100. This one's kind of cool because it's got 6 doors, which does wonders for prestige and structural rigidity. But other than that, I don't know what's there to say about this thing.
Yeah, it's circa 1990, so it's got the high technology V8. They killed several Landaus to make the roof.
Yeah,
there's that.
Save the Landaus.
Yeah, I don't know. This is weird. I mean, obviously, coach built.
I suppose the cool thing about this is it is smaller than a regular Cadillac limo, both in length and width, to the point that you could conceivably just use it as a daily driver and it wouldn't be too annoying. Like, I'm sure it's not longer than even like a Tahoe, let alone a Suburban. So, neat. 616. Where are we in the world? I don't know.
I feel like I should know that. You know what they say about Cadillacs, speaking of how this one's a little smaller, is they're known for their maneuverability.
Oh, so. That is what they say.
Yeah.
All right. Next up.
Yes, the Spacevan.
Yeah.
I think these were just sold here as the Toyota van, but they were called the Spacevan in maybe England and maybe in Japan, but kind of the predecessor to the Previa, has the engine in the doghouse kind of behind the driver. In the middle, probably manual or available with a manual. Supercharger didn't come till later. Cool vans, and kind of was the archetype of all the vans in Japan for the better part of a decade.
These are neat. Also known as also known as the Ace, and was it a High Ace, or was the High Ace might have been bigger?
Might be the Light Ace.
Yeah, Light Ace, Town Ace, and the famous Master Ace, which actually does exist. Great vans. The cab over design has a lot of advantages. Its one main disadvantage is you being the crumple zone in an accident, which is why you don't see them as much, at least in this country anymore. A lot of similarities to the Previa just in overall layout. The doghouse on these is a lot bigger. Like the Previa, it's just like kind of a subtle hump that goes under the front seats. This one's just got like a garden shed covered in 70s blue, 80s blue Toyota carpet. The motors in these were, I believe, a Toyota Y motor, which is either derived from or shared with or both the forklift from that era. Not super powerful, push rod, available 1 year only with fuel injection. And they run and run and run. You still see these on the road in California. I think rust was an enemy of them elsewhere. Yeah. 4-wheel drive versions are cool. If you got a manual 4-wheel drive, you got a 2-speed transfer case, like a Jeep. Automatic ones didn't have that, fun fact. So, just nothing wrong with this car, for sure.
Damn, Nick, I think you might be a secret Toyota Ace fan.
I really am. I should get one of these.
Yeah.
The thing that bums me out, there is a neighbor around the way that had one of these that was a cargo version with no windows, and they had painted some kind of artistic mural thing on the side. And then that van disappeared, and now they have a Dodge A100, which is like, I'm sure, like, okay, that's cooler, I guess, if you're an artist. But like, man, I kind of wanted that Toyota.
Yeah.
Should have gotten it before they got rid of it. All right, next up. Oh. Well, it's a Yugo. Famously, the first Yugo in Lemons, the only Yugo in Lemons? Question mark?
No,
more than one.
The Spank had
Yeah, you're right. Well, the first Yugo in Lemons, pretty early on at Thunder Hill, we were excited for it because it's one of those cars that is just iconic. You know, when you say the word lemon in a literal sense, you know, in reference to a bad car, Yugo's on the short list. We saw one show up. We had been doing racing for a couple of years, and it was like, man, we've never seen it. Yugo. One showed up. It wasn't ready for tech. We were really excited about it. They got it to pass tech. It goes out on track. Turn 1 at Thunder Hill. Turn 2 at Thunder Hill. Turn 3 at Thunder Hill. Loses control and rolls over. So it had traveled a grand total of about 300 yards before it's one of those things that's like, oh man, Yugo is probably going to handle real crappy and then roll over. It's like, oh, it actually did. So anyway, very auspicious debut for the Yugo in Lemons.
Yeah. Multiple Lemons Rally winners have run Yugos. Weirdly have a following. Like it'd be really hard to find a $500 Yugo anymore, because any of them that were kept, that are still in existence, were kept maybe not nice, but at least operable.
Yeah. I mean, they were the reason why they had. I mean, I feel like they sold in okay numbers. When they came out, you would see them. Like, and the reason for that was they were the cheapest car by, I think, a pretty good margin. Like, you know, so it was all of the folks who just like, I don't care what it is, it's cheap. And usually when that happens, when the car is worn out 3 years later, they just throw it away. So like, it's unusual to find somebody who has kept it up. So yeah, you're right. It's kind of hard to find a cheap one these days. But that being said, and Eric, you could speak to this as the chief of the Lemons Supreme Court, if somebody shows up with a Yugo that they might have spent more than $500 on, it's possible that they would not get any penalty laps from the judges.
You might even say probable. Man, yeah. We've had a couple in racing. We've had a couple of them do rallies. We had one on a rally that was a GVX, which comes with an extra 200 cc's and an extra speed in the gearbox. But yeah,
and like a spoiler, right? Like a body kit.
Yeah, there's like a body kit, and then the interior, the seat had like a stripe on it. You know, it was pretty sweet.
That's nice.
Although
the one I'd like to see is the convertible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
They sold tens of those.
Yeah. Tens upon tens.
Yeah.
All right, next up.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Man, Stellantis at its finest.
Yeah. Dude, let's start on the right with the Dodge Challenger that has, you know, I can't see what's on the window, but I assume there's an Instagram handle on there, and, you know, maybe the YouTube channel, and no rush. Is that what it says?
It says no rush. Yeah.
I'm sure that means something, some variant of a tap out graphic on the door.
Yeah, it's that.
It's everything a Challenger tends to be. But more germane to our interests is the car to its left, the Dodge Caliber.
Yeah.
In a previous episode of Lemons Car Spotting, we referenced that our friend Judge Chris Overzet traded a Caliber for tattoos.
Yeah.
A good trade for Chris.
And I'll reiterate, we mentioned this in the other episode, but tattoos that he has not yet received. So I think if you have any suggestions for what type of tattoos to get, exchange for a Caliber, go ahead and let us know.
Yeah. And Chris also pointed out it was the worst car he's ever driven. Totally ready for Lemons. We have one in Lemons with a big supercharger on it. That's awesome. We want to see somebody bring an SRT4, which has forged internals and 280 horsepower, making it therefore the stupidest car that's ever been built. So we really want to see one of those.
Yeah, perfect.
There's a whole story on it. You can look it up.
Yeah.
Rod Blagojevich is involved. That's really all.
Yeah. It's a deep Lemons dive on that one.
Yeah.
I will point out, looking at the Challenger a little more closely, it's got some sort of JDM drift car accoutrement, namely the heart-shaped tow hook. And then to a certain extent, the big, reflective window graphic is kind of a thing that you would see on a Rocket Bunny S chassis Nissan. So I don't know if this guy is trying to, sort of bridge two worlds with his Challenger. I mean, drifting is a thing that a Challenger certainly could do. It's better than the normal thing it's used for, which is, grand larceny, committing crimes. But I don't know, interesting, different direction.
Yeah.
All right.
Both frequent flyers on the crime car spectrum.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking of Stellantis, back to I'm going to go ahead and say it, a happier era in Chrysler than what we're facing now. This is, of course, a Cordoba, a soft Corinthian leather. Is it soft? I always screw that up because I think it's one of those things where like people have said rich and it's actually not rich Corinthian leather.
I know the answer to this. There are two versions of the commercial.
Oh, that's why.
One of them, he says rich Corinthian leather, and the other one he says fine. I think that's right.
Corinthian leather. Okay, well,
maybe it is soft. It's two of those three adjectives are used in different versions. I can't remember.
We know for a fact that it is actually, from Corinth, wherever that might be, and that it is leather. We know that, right? Anywho, Chrysler Cordoba, always welcome in Lemons. There's a team at the time of this taping, this is like a week from now, is debuting the first ever 2-car Chrysler Cordoba effort at Ginger Man, which is going to be incredible. This one looks like it's about ready to become the third team car.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, it is the third car. Double Doba action is one of the things I think we've been holding hope for 17 years of doing Lemons. But yeah, this is the Cordoba. Well, I mean, what else can you say? It's 1 million feet long. It's plushy. Some of these there was a 300 trim for these, 300C, I think, which meant nothing. So
you could get the bad big block, like
the 400,
the 400, which is some kind of totally neutered 440 that has like 125 horsepower. But
at least one of the double Dobas is running a 400. I haven't seen the second one yet. I assume it is probably also running a 400. So
sweet. I just love the fact that in that period of time where people started to be really concerned about, fuel mileage and efficiency, the big three, and I want to say Chrysler in particular, just came out with engines that were smaller and not more efficient. They were just like less powerful and smaller.
Right.
And it was like, okay, but what we really wanted was more mileage, whatever. So
we sold some of these B bodies with, speaking of B body Chryslers, they sold some of the late B bodies with like 223-to-1 rear ends on them. It's theoretically geared for 390 miles.
It does suit the power curve of the totally choked down 400 V8. Yeah. And yes, speaking of B bodies.
Oh, dude. I don't even know which one this is. It looks like a Coronet or maybe it's a Charger, but clearly has been sitting behind this house into desert for 20 years. Although the mags look like they're like, maybe the guy like goes out every couple weeks and sprays them down with a hose. I don't know. The rest of it looks pretty sun-baked and sad.
Yeah. What are those wheels called? Because we've seen them before on Lemon's Car Spotting, and it was one of those wheels that, like, if you had a Mighty Max or an El Camino or, even some Camaros in 1990, you were required by law to get these wheels.
Yeah.
Who made them and what are they called? Because they're iconic, for a time.
I feel like this is like a magic eye, and the longer you stare at it, the more Bondo you see. The entire left rear quarter is Bondo. And at least a third of the car in between the wheels is also Bondo.
Yeah. All right. So I've got the hooptiest for this week. I'm going to leave it right here because it's just why is it so collapsed in the front? Like, these did they have torsion beams and somebody just, lost the nut and it unwound itself? I don't know. I have no idea how any of that works. But more importantly, this is one of those cars that if it were to show up at a Lemons race, which it should, people would say like, oh man, like that, there's no way that's $500. Like a classic, blah, 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 all that stuff. This is how many of them exist even to this day in 2023. That you can still get sort of not the quite desirable version of the iconic nameplate. Like Eric said, like, is it a Roadrunner? Is it a GTX? We don't know, but it's one of the weird 70s ones that is not valuable. So if you find one that's sort of just kind of returning to the earth like this one is, there's a pretty good chance you can get it for close to enough Lemons budget and then just bring it and race it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I have the Lemons build again. Absolutely no reason to go anywhere. Just picture this thing with a roll cage. I mean, you leave the wheels on it, you leave the downturned rear exhaust. This is a straight like 1987 street machine, and that is your theme. You are the king of Rockford, Illinois in 1987.
Yep. You're at the Circle K in your sleeveless shirt, just being the man in 87.
That's right.
Totally.
You've put the Craco in, and you've got white. And there it is.
No. Totally. All right, that'll do it for this week on Lemons Car Spotting. Keep finding bee bodies or whatever this is in fields across America or wherever, and we'll find and we'll talk about them.
Man, what tape do you think is actually stuck in the Craco?
See, my to use your term of butt rock, it is definitely butt rock, but I'm not knowledgeable enough about the variations to know exactly which form of butt rock.
All right, well, tell us in the comments which butt rock band is stuck in the tape deck.